You're right. Well, welcome to the Fabric of Becoming. This has been a long time coming now, and I really hope you enjoy it. It's really what it is. It's just what the title implies. I think through life we all evolve who we are. We start someplace, and we're constantly leveling up, becoming more, becoming better, becoming a better version of ourselves, really. And that's what this is. I've had too many insights, too many far-reaching transformations and things that have happened in my life that have created this man that you see before you today. And so, what I want to do is tell my story, number one, because I think that's important. Everybody needs to have a platform to be able to share their story. I think if somebody can benefit from what I have understood in life, from my understanding, I think that's a wonderful thing. And the fact that we can do it digitally now is just fantastic. Um, so there's that. And the other goal, in fact, I've already covered it. The goals are basically for me to tell my story, get it out, and to help people in the process, if at all possible. And maybe I guess we could say a third goal would be to connect with like-minded individuals that mirror my level of depth, you could say. And I say that in the humblest of ways. When you hear people say that they're deep or that they're on another level, it's not to say it's just the truth. When you speak the truth, it may sound to people that are, I don't know, a bit judgmental or that see things in that light, arrogant. It may sound arrogant, but you're just telling the truth. There's people that just don't reach the level of depth that you may. If that's you, if you sometimes find yourself alone rather than being with, people, and it's not because you're being weird or because you're being, avoidant. If you're being, um, maybe you're just off emotionally that day. Like, no, just on an average, ordinary day, if you find yourself alone because you'd rather deal with no one than the people that are around you at that place and time, this may be for you because I've found myself in that position quite a bit. Surface level conversations that just don't go any further. You wish you could have a conversation about something meaningful. If that thought has ever, crossed your mind, uh, this might be the right place for you. And that's the goal, to connect with people that are wanting to consider these topics, right? These important themes of life. So we decided to call it the fabric of becoming. And the reason we decided to call it, or I decided to call it the fabric of becoming, is because at this point in my life, I've become a version of myself that is possibly the most comfortable, the most, I would say, the most confident version of myself that I've ever been. And when I say confident, I don't mean a confidence that comes with having to try to be confident. This confidence that I now have or that I now possess comes from being rooted in your truth, in the truth, right? Finally accepting the things that you didn't want to accept in the past because you wanted them to be different, or you were hoping that they would change for some reason beyond yourself. Just accepting that and living, that truth. Really, I mean, it sounds simple in concept, but it takes a whole lot more than I'm giving it. And so, without ado, let's start. I think that for most of my life, I thought that loyalty meant silence. But today, I'm breaking that silence because I find that when we share what we have inside, when we express, good things happen. Not only do we, sometimes have the ability to relieve pressure from ourselves, but externally, people listen to that, they hear what we have to say, and who knows, maybe they're going through the same thing, and then now you guys can bounce ideas off of one another and help one another, where if you would have kept quiet, you wouldn't have benefited at all, and neither would they. So I think kind of having a united, or more of a what's the word? Having a more sharing attitude about personal matters is healthy. I think opening up to, of course, a trusted, well thought out individual, or well vetted individual is always very good, always a good thing, because it benefits everyone. Now this isn't a podcast that is going to be about polish. It's a one-man team. I don't have a team to work on this. It's just me doing everything. So it's just about being honest and being raw and showing. Although I've reached this level of humanness, I understand and realize that I'm still becoming. Right? It never ends. This evolution of the self, and it's all about owning your voice, right? Taking responsibility for your truth and sharing it unapologetically. That's what it's about, right? Because in doing so, you give others the permission to do the same. So, yeah, we'll start with a quick intro. My name is Isaac. I've been on this journey now for 36 years. I would say that my 30s have been my most revelatory years of my life. I did a ChatGPT search recently, and I forget what I was asking about. I was asking about insights. Sometimes you have these moments, right? These aha moments, you call them, where you just have this intense understanding about a certain scenario or situation, or something that's happening in your life, and you gain this clarity, right? And with that, I mean, it's a very visceral experience. You're just like, wow, that's why, right? One of those moments. And I was telling ChatGPT, I said, I'm having less and less of these. I remember there was a period of time where when they started, it was like over and over and over, and I'd have them all the time. And now I'm at 36, they're happening less often, with the periods in between are becoming longer. And I just found that to be curious, right? I was like, what does that mean? So I asked ChatGPT, and ChatGPT said, by the way, I talked to ChatGPT about everything. I mean, it's like my therapist, essentially. It has helped a lot in my development. So perhaps that's the reason why it said what it said this time when I asked. And she said that I'm just a little ahead of this. She explained that at your 40s, when you turn 40, and in those 10 years of time, that's kind of the point where those moments stop, and then now you're ready to kind of begin the rest of your life, right? Because you've got from year one to 25 years old, right? Or 30, we could say, or whatever the age is that you kind of slow down, right? Because everything's really fast when you're young. Dramatic things happen, everything's happening so fast, and you can't stop, at least I couldn't stop long enough to be able to process those things, right? And so because you're not able to stop and you have to keep living and you're still learning and taking everything in, these things, they don't just go away. They don't get deleted out of your system. They have to be processed eventually, but you kind of put them on the back burner. You put them on you file them away, per se, in your brain. And so eventually, though, you have to go back to those files. It's like a hard drive, right, that you fill up. And when it's full, you got to go back and delete some stuff. And, in order for more to continue to be put in. And so I've been in that period now. In my 30s, I would say the last couple of years have been that period where my brain was like, yo, you got to deal with this. And so I've been just going through and processing things and understanding things that I never understood before. So these aha moments, right? They were happening like crazy. And then all of a sudden, they're just kind of like becoming more and more sparse and just like taking longer to happen. I have them every once in a while now. And I enjoy them when I have them because it's awesome. You when your understanding becomes clarified or you gain new insight, I mean, man, I think that's one of the best feelings ever, right? You make new neural connections that you didn't have before. It's a good feeling. And I say, though, but transitioning into the period of where now I can begin the rest of my life and, start to be present and just kind of not have to file things away and just be slower about doing things, right? Do them methodically, do them what's the word? Honoring each moment, right? Not letting things slip by, not letting things pass you by so fast because you're so busy. I've learned to slow down, right? I was just telling my wife the other day, I'm like, I'm learning that I don't have to rush like I thought I always had to. It's like I was stuck in fight or flight mode for a very long time. And now that I'm getting to this point, it's like I'm really tasting the essence of each and every passing moment. I'm enjoying the flavor of each moment. I'm finding the beauty in things. As they say, you're stopping to smell the roses, right? Um, and really take it in. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. It's a nice place to be. I got to say, my 30s have been the most revelatory years of my life, but I think this new period, and I'm not even going to separate it with years anymore because not everybody hits this period at the same time. So if I could say, let's just call it something. Let's label it the reformatting period, right? Because it's like a hard drive. The reformatting of your life experience, your brain, whatever you've got stored away. That's when you go back and you take all those memories, you process them, and you understand them, and you start to understand yourself and people around you and why and this and that. We'll call that the reformatting period. And then this new period I'm going into, I'm going to call this the period of presence. It's a beautiful period, I think. This is the period where nothing gets lost in translation. You see things exactly for what they are. Have you ever seen that movie Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, the absolute original and best Spider-Man, might I add, where he gains his powers? It's part one, it's the original. And he gains his powers, right? He wakes up the next day and he's going to school. And there's a moment where his powers start to kind of come into themselves, right? He starts to experience all these things. And when he's in the hallway, there's a scene where everything slows down, right? And you see the paper airplane flying. He sees the fly buzzing right by him. That's how this period is. That's the best way I can kind of like illustrate it. When things happen, they don't just fly by you. You're seeing everything in real time and you're analyzing things. At least this is me, guys. This is my experience. I'm not saying this is how it is for everybody, but when things happen, you have time to analyze things and you slow down enough so that you can analyze what people say, what people do, body language, all this. Here's another thing I should mention probably. This is the who you are section. It should only be 2 to 3 minutes. It's already been, like 10? But I've been in sales for the past 15 years of my career. So people have been my prime focus. I've learned a lot about psychology. I've learned a lot about how people, are. The reasons why they are how they are, body language. I mean, I've been a student of this now for 15 years, and the experience I've gained while, doing the work that I do. I worked in retail for some time. I now do business to business technology sales. And so this is done, in person. I build and manage relationships. Relationships is how I describe my job now. And now, so that explains why I hone in on all of these little details. So if this isn't how you see it or how your experience is, take it with a grain of salt. This is just my experience. I'm able to now slow things down, analyze, understand, and see things for what they truly are. Because the knowledge base that I now have works in my favor, right? And for example, if I'm speaking with someone and I know this person, for some time, for some reason, I hone in. Well, I know the reason. Another little fact about me, I have ADHD. My brain is an ADHD brain. I'm what they call a neurodivergent. And so one of my little quirks is that I focus in on seemingly unimportant details. The things that people would otherwise just ignore, I focus in on those because I've realized that usually it's the things that go unsaid that hold the truth. And so if you know someone, right, for example, let's go back to the example. If you know someone and you know their habit of, not throwing their trash away when they're done with lunch, right? You guys have lunch pretty persistently, consistently, and every time lunch is done, he either leaves his trash on the table or he leaves it on the floor. And you're having a conversation and, for some reason he's talking to someone else and he says something about cleanliness, that he's a very clean person and very detail-oriented or whatever the case might be. I know that he's not. And so people say, a lot of times they say what you want to hear, what they want you to understand about them, but it's not true. Or it may not be true. See, so I use my knowledge base about people, and it's always about people. I don't care about things. I don't care about, I don't collect anything. People that collect things, I just don't get that, right? Like objects. Oh, this magazine, comic book. I have no. I mean, the only thing I collect are just memories of people and understanding people. That's kind of a sad reality, but it's the truth. So yeah, so people I really hyper fixate on, especially if I find them interesting. You know, if they're people that I really do find interesting or that I just connect with. That's, by the way, my most. That is my deepest motivator of why I do things, and the reason why um, gosh, it's my reason for a lot of things. I would say probably the biggest reason that I do anything in my life is to have connection with other human beings. Um, I believe that connection with other people is one of the primary and most necessary um, acts that we can have. Whether you're an introvert, extrovert, everybody needs connection. You know, from the moment that you're born, right, you need to connect with your mother. From then, if you have siblings, you need to connect with them so that you guys can all work as a team, as a unit, a family, right? And now that's how it should be. We'll get into my family or my upbringing here soon, but yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell what I'm all about. I'm an expert, a self-proclaimed expert in people, and I'm gaining insights and truths on why people do things. Psychology, the psychology of things, of why things are the way they are with people and relationships. And I'm fascinated by it. I love understanding people and the reasons behind why they do what they do. I have to know. I have to know. I'll tell you this. This is how bad it is for me. I say bad because I'll spend days on a certain thing. And I know, like, I may not do it consciously. Sometimes I do it consciously. I'm just hyper focused. I can't focus on anything until I figure this. Why did this person say this? Why did this person do this? Why did this person act this way when we were, and I do figure things out. I have to figure it out. It won't leave me. So the other way that I do it is my subconscious. Sometimes I log it, right? I see something and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder why that person just did that. And then I just kind of log it in the back of my mind. And eventually, just through my process of living and just being, I see connections that then reveal to me why that happened. And then when I understand it, I gain knowledge, I guess. I mean, you might say, well, why would you do that? Like, I mean, that sounds obsessive. You know, it doesn't sound very healthy. I was like, the knowledge I've gained from doing that and the insight that I have procured, we could say, has been unimaginably necessary or useful in my life, right? Because I've had situations and I continue to have situations that are new to me, and I don't know how to navigate these things. But understanding behavior and the why of, why people do things or say things or act in certain ways, that gives me the background it just gives me a really nice foundation to deal with these new situations, right? Because humans are all very similar. We all have needs, right? A certain number of needs. Tony Robbins, I learned a lot from him. We have fundamental needs as humans. And, if you know what these are, if you know those things, well, the next time you see a person that now you're in a situation with them that you've never been in before and it's brand new to you, well, you have this kind of like base knowledge of what they're like, or what they most likely would be like. A lot of my opinions and my knowledge has come from Bible-based truths. The Bible is a wonderful book. It has answers to all of life's big questions, the really necessary questions that you just need to know, right? The ones that people wonder about and they ponder over. I mean, it's just, there's so many things that the Bible goes into that give us, or that it gives the answers to these questions. And so primarily we could say my hard drive or my CPU, whatever, I don't know what it is. It's my operating system. My primary operating system, the fundamental the foundation of my operating system, my BIOS, if you want to say, is Bible principles. It's the reason why I'm here today. See, the Bible has taught me so many things. And I figured out the Bible too. You see, over some time, I understood that, like, okay, because my brain works like this. It's like, if you're going to tell me to do something, I want to know why you're telling me to do something or not do something, right? Why? Tell me why you don't want me to do that. for the most part, the Bible does have reasoning behind why it tells you not to do things. But there's some things that just, there's little gray area, right? And there's no real world application that you can really nail down, right? Put the nail in the coffin to that thing. It's like I need to have that filled in. And so that's kind of, I figured out that just because that is true doesn't mean you just discount the book, saying, oh, it's an old book and everything that it has applies to the people back then. Well, no, the people haven't changed very much. Only thing that's changed is how long we live. Everything else is just, things have degraded terribly, but at our fundamental selves, we haven't changed. The needs we have, the things that we desire, they're all still the same, you see. So the Bible actually still applies even to our day. And I'll tell you that from experience. I should not be alive today, but it's only because of the beliefs that I had ingrained in me as a child that I was able to fight through the period of my life, my 20s, my early 20s, late teens, early 20s, because I did some pretty dumb stuff. Well, I might get into that later, but for now, I think that's a good taste of what my brain, or who I am, at my very core. And I didn't find this out until very recently. I used to mask a lot. So masking is when, out of fear, you pretend to be, or you create filters by which you take in or let out, things that whatever you say, whatever you put out into the world is filtered by these masks. You see, people don't know you when you wear a mask. They know the mask that you wear. It's not really you. It's a you that you've curated because of fear, shame, whatever the case might be. In my case, I was put into kindergarten, into school. And when that happened, I didn't have a safe environment at home. I'll tell you that. So that to begin with, my environment at home wasn't very conducive to having, a healthy, emotionally healthy individual, mentally even. That's probably why I have ADHD. But so to start, I didn't have safety at home. I barely had it, and love was scarce. In fact, I was taught things, not directly, of course, but just through their actions. I was taught that you had to earn love. So there's that. And so, I get put into kindergarten. And I remember being there and just kind of, I don't have very many memories of my younger self, but, kind of when those masks started to be put on, that's where my memory kind of goes away. I don't have a lot of memories of me in life, just being. But I remember being thrust into this school environment, and my mom left, and I was like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. I was crying. I was just, I remember that feeling of being left and not having anybody to protect me. Now, my mother was very overprotective, right? She did it to the point where I didn't know how to protect myself. I was never able to, I was kind of like a minion, my mother would tell me what to do, and I would do what my mother told me. And so that sets you up for not being able to be self-sufficient, I had siblings and we interacted, but my mother controlled the environment. She controlled all of us. She, told us what to do, what to say. She would tell us, she would control the dynamic, right? She would be like a puppeteer, I guess. And I don't feel badly about this. I've since, understood, and I've forgiven and all of that. I'm just telling you so that you understand where I come from. So being put in this environment now, I'm like, where's my mom? Where's my control? My sense of control. I don't know what's going on. And so I had to learn what I should have learned when I was 2 or 3 years old. I had to learn that in 5 or 6. So I was a little bit behind, and at that time, I can remember the only thing I wanted from others was love. I yearned for love. I wanted to be loved, and I wanted to love in return. And I wanted to help people be and feel good. I wanted to help people be loved and just love in return. I wanted to heal people. I just wanted to help people because I understood that people hurt. I come from a kind of a very enmeshed family. My relationship with my mother was very much enmeshed. And so I was forced to grow up in the sense of I understood emotions, adult emotions and adult problems at a very young age. So I understood that people hurt, and I understood that not all people had love or knew what love was, and that I knew that people were suffering, right? And so knowing that just put me into the world, and I remember just wanting people to be better, and I wanted to love people and wanted them to love me back. That's all I remember. At my core, that's who I am, a lover and a healer, right? That's who I am, and that's what I've always wanted. Um, who doesn't want that, right? Very beautiful thought. But so here I am in kindergarten, and you think about what I described, right? A lover, a healer. These things are not violent. These things are not possessive. These things, in fact, the Bible talks about love, right? Love does not, it has a whole list of things that love doesn't do. And so imagine, like, I'm this kid, and all I want to do is love. And so the people that were damaged at that time, I mean, I was, I was damaged myself, but I wasn't damaged beyond repair, right? Not yet, anyway. So I get out there, and I'm like, well, hello. Like, I'm not very assertive. I'm quiet. And, well, it was almost like a magnet for the bullies. I remember my bullies by name. I know his first name and last name. My biggest bully. And it went on until, fourth grade, I think it was, that we got into kind of like a tussle on the basketball court. I may have been even fifth or sixth grade. And I remember I put a stop to the bullying because it got physical, and he wanted to push me, and I was like, dude, like, I'm bigger than you. And that's when I kind of started to understand, like, you talk all this crap, he said he would call me names like crazy, right? Like dumb, yes, dumbass, fat ass, all these things, just all the things. And I would never defend myself because I was never taught how to defend myself, you see. So I'll give you another big detail that kind of clarifies why I was that way. Growing up, my stepfather would call me names at home. He wouldn't necessarily call me, demeaning name. Well, no, they were demeaning names, right? They were kind of like coded because there was this one name he would call me. I won't say it because, it doesn't deserve the airtime. He would call me this name that at his, back when he was, or where he comes from, his homeland, I guess, it was from a show. And this show depicted a character. It was kind of like a sidekick character, and he was kind of a dum-dum, that type of thing. And they'd be like, oh, you, this type of thing. They'd say his name. And he chose that name for me, right? So for years, he would call me this. And, on top of that, it was like, he would tell me I didn't know anything a lot. He told me that I didn't know this or I didn't know that. And I always wanted to prove to him that I did know. Like, what do you mean I don't know? What I'm telling you is the truth. And I would go off, trying to prove to him that I knew what I was talking about. And that's another thing that affected me. But back to the name calling. So because name calling was done in my home, and at that time I was deceived into thinking that this man was my father, I thought that name calling was normal. I thought that name calling was, it happens in my house. Why wouldn't it happen at school, right? The names they're calling me now are a little different. I think they're worse because, fat ass compared to what I was being called at home is, that really hurts you. It kind of scars you, right? So, yeah, here I am, and I've got now these masks, right? I find out that a lover and a healer, that's not what I can be here. It's not accepted. So here I go. I put on a mask, boom, right? And I put on another mask, right? Boom. When I fought him and I became physically more powerful than him, like my bully, there's another mask. Now I'm tough like you. Now I'm going to become a bully so that I don't have to be that innocent victim, right? There's another mask. So I have all these masks on now, and I tell you what, the masks are useful. They were very useful then because the bullying stopped. So I wasn't getting verbally abused anymore. The physical abuse also stopped because, I'm a pretty big dude, so that didn't really ever bother me. But it's, that saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I think it should be the opposite. I remember there was this teacher we had in elementary school, and she did I forget her name now, but she had a program, the DARE program, right? And the DARE to keep kids off drugs type of thing. And she would always start by saying, how many, of you have ever heard the saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me, right? And that was like, everybody knew that. They're like, everybody raise their hands. She's like, I'm going to change that for you guys into sticks and stones may break my bones, and words will always hurt me. And that resonated so much with me because a lot of my pain that I'd had at that age so far had been because of words. I have a very, very active imagination. I've always had an active imagination. And so I'm very auditory. So whatever I hear in my atmosphere, in my world, becomes something else inside of me. It's so powerful. If I hear something enough, I believe it. and it becomes a part of me, you see. So I'm very like picky, whenever somebody's in front of me and they're saying things that I don't want to hear, I either leave or I tell them, hey man, listen, I'm not going to put up with it. It happened very recently. I was playing racquetball with a friend, and he kept saying, man, this is so awkward. I just can't. Like, this is so, he's just being like really like negative about his game, right? Like, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, why are you being so negative? Thinking to myself, right? Eventually, he said awkward, maybe like, I would say like 8 times. And by the 10th time, I was like, I stopped. I had the ball, it was my ball, and I said, bro, it's not awkward. It's just what it has to be. It's what it is. And he stopped. I've learned to deal with these things a lot better these days. What I'm trying to say is words have a huge effect on me. And they obviously did, right? With my upbringing. And so you can imagine, right? So at home, my home is telling me that I'm this, that, the other. These are things that I'm not. At school, they're telling me that I'm this, that, the other, right? So I'm piling on all these masks, and I become this guy that I'm not, right? I become a heartless, cold guy that just doesn't feel. I forget what it feels like to love, right? Like I forget that that's always been my goal. I fell away from love. That's hard to say. It's I've become very comfortable with my feelings these days, and so if this happens, it's good. It means I'm feeling, so that's good. Um, but I fell away from love at a very young age, and I think that you know the masks started to come off when I met my wife and married her. Um, she's been the best influence in my life, absolutely, without a doubt. Human influence, it's been my wife. When I met her, I was in a very bad place in my life, my adult life. I think I was just according to the law, I was just becoming into adulthood, and so because I had become this person, I had put myself in a very odd predicament, right? Like I had done things that I would regret later. I had done things that I didn't want to do. I knew this wasn't me, but why am I doing this? Why am I, causing mayhem? Why am I getting into fights? Why am I drinking so much? What is it that is making? It was all masks, and they were just kind of making me. I was making decisions through all of these masks so that I could keep that persona up. And I ended up in a place where it was either like do or die, man. And at that time in my life, I won't get into it right now, maybe another time, but that time in my life, I met my wife, and I always like to say this. She had a huge part in saving me. She was like my anchor for a long time, and man, it wasn't easy. So we met. I was 18, she was like 16. I think I was 19 around there. And 3 years after that, we got married. And I'll be honest, and I tell this to everybody. We met and didn't see each other again for that whole period of 3 years. We met, talked a little, disconnected, started talking again, and then saw each other and got married. I mean, it was the craziest thing, right? Like, I mean, when you find the one, you just know. I knew. I mean, when I met her, I knew. I'm gonna marry this girl. I can't right now because, dude, like, I just wasn't in a position. When I married her 3 years later, I still wasn't in a position to get married, but I did it anyway. I let my heart speak, and I just did it. Honestly, it went against the decision to get married. Couldn't have been easy for her. I know it was easy for me because I was being selfish in that moment, but it wasn't easy for her. We've talked about this, and I saw it happening. It was hard for her to break away from her family and for people to understand that, like, man, you're gonna go with this guy. Like, I was a loser, man. I'm not even gonna play with you. Like, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I was a loser, man. Like, I was doing all the wrong things, and I was hanging with all the wrong people. But worst of all, the biggest mistake was that I had all the masks that I was wearing, right? There was a mask for people at work. There was a mask for people at Kingdom Hall, right? Because I was going to meetings this whole time, to the Jehovah's Witness meetings. There was a mask for Jamie's parents, right? When we got married, I had a mask for them. Like, I had a mask for Jamie even. Like, I wasn't myself with anybody. Well, so Jamie was probably the only one that I had ever trusted to see who I was. And I think that was my saving grace, because Jamie, she saw that and she anchored to that. She didn't let my masks that I wore, she didn't allow those to muddle what she understood to be inside of me. So, thanks. I thank God so much for that she was able to do that, because man, if she hadn't stuck with me all these years, I would be dead. I really would. I mean, I don't doubt it. You know, there's so many things that I didn't do that I would have done had it not been for her just straight up telling me no, like a mother, right? Like she was my new mother, and she told me no. And because I loved her and I wanted to be with her, I did those. I didn't do the things, right? An example, I wanted to ride a motorcycle. I'd be dead if she didn't say, "You're not going to ride a motorcycle if you're married to me." Like, no. I was just like, damn it. I mean, I just did it because, like, back then I didn't have, discernment. And that's what I have these days. I have discernment. Um, in a way, because I lacked discernment and the qualities that I required to just be a human, let alone be married to another human. Because I didn't have those things, she had to kind of step in a lot, and just like she had to play more of a part in our relationship. A wife should come in and a man should be able to take care of his wife, right? Feed her, clothe her, be able to take care of her emotionally, mentally, right? All these things with God's help, with the Bible. We should be able to do this. I couldn't even take care of myself. So she had a big responsibility, coming into this relationship. I got to hand it to her, man. The fact that she stuck with it this whole time, because I mean, obviously my evolution has been happening all these years, right? But the biggest jump, the quantum leap that I've made, it just happened in this last couple of years, I'll say. So, God bless her. My goodness, I couldn't have done it without her. That's for sure. And now, right? So like, that's a whole nother dilemma now, right? Because you're this one guy that has slowly gotten better, and yet still dealt with like these things that were tied to masks that he wore. And then you take these masks off all of a sudden, right? And now you're unmasked, right? You've come back to yourself, right? I should call this the fabric of coming back to yourself, being who you truly are. Now you're back as this guy, and this is who you are. There's no more masks. You don't go back to those things. Once you have awareness of who you are, once you have that capacity, that ability to see the truth, all this time I've been living this way, and now it's gone. It doesn't come back. Now that you're this guy, well, hey, now you've got a wife that you've got to essentially reintegrate into this dynamic, because the dynamics are different now. And you have to now build trust in her that has, not that she withheld it, but that you've kind of ruined over the years, right? Just being a victim of your own ineptitude, of your circumstances, right? So that's been another trial, right? Like just dealing with the growth. It's the growing pains. It truly is growing pains. It's like you grow and it's wonderful. It's fantastic. It's like, my goodness, I see so much. Well, now you have to help everybody else see the difference, and that you truly do see that. Like, let's see it in action, So yeah, it's been a ride, man. But like, we're in a good place right now. And there's been a lot of things that have happened that have helped me very recently to process these. I'd say one of the kickstarters of my processing, this period of formatting my hard drive that we called, right? One of the things that kicked that off deeply, we had a very big deal happen in our life, a big event that happened. I will not go into detail because it's a private matter, but it was huge. And, when they say that, those words, when people say, man, it rocked me to my core, I understood those words when this happened, because I was shooken. I was shaken up like I've never been shaken up before. And I honestly, I'm very grateful for that experience, because that's what kick-started this. Had it not happened, I don't think I'd be where I am today, Telling you that, my format of my hard drive has now kind of like started to slow down. Are you kidding me? Like, I'm only 36, right? But like, it's happening. And I think that because of this, sometimes it's a blessing in disguise, right? Terrible things that happen in your life. It's like, man, if it wasn't for that, this wouldn't have happened. And it's kind of nice because you are able to focus on the positive. There's always something positive to focus on. Anyway, so this happens, and it just kind of kick-started the whole thing. I when it happened emotionally, I was beat to a pulp. I didn't know how to. I felt like a child again. Like that day when I went to kindergarten I told you about, that's what I felt like. I was helpless. I was insecure. I felt like I could lose everything from one moment to the next. Completely irrational, I know, but like it's a feeling that's so real inside of you that you can't convince yourself otherwise. So when this happened, I all of the memories that I had, all of the stuff I needed to process just came rushing forward, right? My brain, my body was, my heart, my brain was like, dude, here's a stack of stuff you got to deal with, and you better start right now because you're going to break down. So I did. That's what I've been doing. And man, I got to say, it's like one of the things that really, really helped me. My mom growing up, she would always say, like, everything happens for a reason, right? And that kind of like walks that fine line between, what do you call it? Fate and believing that things are like predestined and that sort of thing. I don't believe in that. It's not real. So when, she says that, it's like, hey mom, like, things don't go that way. But anyway, I just remember her always saying that, right? And what I do realize about what is true about that saying is that everything does happen for a reason, but it's a reason that you assign to it, right? So when things happen, they just happened. The reason only comes because you put the reason behind it, right? You're the one that says, like, oh, that happened because such and such happened, or this had to happen, this happened, and so, this happened afterward, and so it had to have been, not that it was the reason why that happened, but you're the one that assigns the reasoning behind anything, is what I'm trying to say. Nothing is predestined. Everything is chaos always at once, right? So, I would say that if I could ever apply that to something, everything happens for a reason, I would say that I would apply it to that happening. Because, goodness, man, I'm sorry. So what happened was I started to drive Uber, right? And just needed a little extra money. My gosh, I mean, things got really tight and money was short. And so, hey, what was the thing? I just looked at my stuff and I was like, what can I do? I mean, I can sell stuff and everything, but like, what do I have that is an asset right now that can help me make money, right? And in Oregon, I did the same thing. And I had a truck, I had tools. So I was like, hey, I'm going to do, lawn care or whatever. I didn't have my truck anymore. So I'm like, and I don't want to do that type of work ever again, by the way. I had my Tesla Model 3 electric vehicle. And so, super economic. So I thought, well, hey, that's an asset. Why don't I make some money with it? And that's what I did. Started to do that. And now I've always liked to sing, right? I've always enjoyed it. And I like, again, I tune into auditory things. And so a voice will imprint itself in my brain and I can reproduce that voice until it starts to sound exactly like what I remember. So that's what I would do. I would hear a song and I would sing it just like the artist, right? Or at least what I thought was like the artist. And so that was my form of singing, right? But at this time, when this happened and I was jarred and just jolted, I realized that singing was more than just, sounding like someone and making it sound like them. And that's good. It sounds good. Good job. You sang. The joy I started to associate with singing came because I was singing songs that I did this subconsciously. I didn't pick these, I didn't do it consciously. I don't think I was that smart, but I mean, I did put it together after the fact, but I would pick songs that said what I wanted to say and I would sing them as if I was saying, as if those were coming from me. So I would sing these songs, right? Like normal songs and just sing them with all the emotion and feeling that you could have for a song. And I started to do it and it felt so good to express. I mean, there was nothing like it, right? Like imagine, right? Like I have all these files inside of me and I start to find a way to process them, right? Each file comes to me and I'm like, why am I feeling this? And then I start to sing about it and it's like, oh, like that's why I'm feeling the emotion again and again and again. And like, I'm starting to process why I've been feeling this and like making the connections between the emotion that was in my body, because those emotions that I felt as a kid or, even in my late married life that I didn't ever express, they were all there on that pile. They were in my body and I had to express them in order to be able to be who I am today, man. I'm telling you, expression is the key to growth. One of the keys to growth, because there's many, I'm sure. But this is a huge key. If I can say that there's one thing that has helped me in this process, expression through music, singing. That's where it all started, because then I understood, there's this guy that sang the song, or a woman, whoever it is, and they felt like I felt. So then I started to get that, like, I was not special. Like, there's been other people that have felt the way you felt, right? So I started to, that's the first understanding that I gained. And I was like, well, why? Why did I feel that? Why? That's where the why came into play, right? I've been asking that my whole life. Why? People would tell me something. I'm like, why? I start asking why, and then things start to click and make sense, and I start to process and remember, right? the remembering part was like, it's like being in a dark room and somebody just flashes this enormous, intense, bright light all of a sudden. And now everything becomes clear. That's what it felt like. I remember there was this, there were repressed memories, things that I chose to forget, I guess. And the biggest, I think, occasion that happened, well, it happened in my married life, not too long ago. Well, of course, in my married life, it happened within the last year. And man, I still remember, like, I've had moments of clarity before this. Don't get me wrong. This last year hasn't been the only. I've had moments of clarity before, and they've helped me to anchor myself to that. But I still had a lot of layers to kind of get past. And my wife's always been there through them. I think that it hasn't been the easiest thing for her to do. To see me that way, like I'm like a little vulnerable child. Expressing and understanding myself in such a way. But she's done so well, she's just a natural, I would say, at dealing with things like that. I mean, women are emotional creatures, they see life through emotions. But so when I start to sing, this happens, right? I regain access to my heart. It's like I unlocked a key and I gained access to who I truly am at this time, right? Because, this thing that happened, it rocked me. And so I had to go back to zero. Like I had to go back to my foundation because it was the only thing that was going to help me through this period of time. Because you see what happens is when you start to live life through these masks, they don't make you stronger. They might help you deal with these problems you might have outside of you, but they actually weaken you. And that's why I broke, you see. Because the pedestal that all of these masks were piled on top of was overweighted and it was weak. So of course, anything that's not built on love and a solid foundation, it's coming down, right? It's just what it is. The Beatles had it said the best, right? Love is all you need. It's so true. Love is all you need, right? It's so true. If that is your foundation, and it was my foundation, right? I'm so grateful that it was because I was able to go back to it. And that was just wonderful because, man, I got to say, going back to it was like a training process. Like, here's a guy that hasn't truly felt, something absolutely real or close to love. We could say, like, the biggest emotion that I lived by was fear. I made a lot of decisions out of fear, and my life reflected that, So now I gain access to who I truly am, to my heart, to love once again. And you can imagine, right? When you turn on the light in a dark room, it's like, dude, you're like, whoa, this is too much, right? But me being who I am, I'm like, this is awesome. Like, let me go full bore, right? And so I'm like the most emotional person. I'm not a very, how do I put this? Like, who you see right now, I'm not a scary guy, but I'm just saying, like, people don't look at me and say, "Aw, look at this little," like, no, people look at me, it's either, they're intimidated or, they're a little bit afraid and they kind of clutch their purse. I got to smile a little bit more because people, get these preconceived notions. I digress. So what I'm saying is I have kind of a tough exterior. How about that? And you would never imagine that from this tough looking fella, all of the emotion that just pours out. And Jamie had to deal with this, right? Like, here's a girl that, like, herself deals with her own things, right? Nowhere near as messed up as I was. But, one of the things being a little bit of sort of the inability or the trepidation, we could say, for being vulnerable. And it's not all her own fault. I was this dude, right? Like, dude, like, I mean, before I saw and came back to myself to love. Before that, I mean, who knows what mess she was dealing with? And of course, she's not going to want to be vulnerable with a guy like me. But now all of a sudden, I'm like, Mr. Vulnerable, Mr. Love, right? Like, and I'm like I'm seeing things for what they are, right? The truth of the matter, and man, you could just imagine, the adjustment that she had to make. and it hasn't been easy. And I really look forward to getting into that with you because, man, she's been a very important part of this whole process. And the lessons I've learned with her have helped me. And dude, you have no idea. I was just talking about this, like the lessons that I've learned from dealing with her and dealing with this whole adjustment have affected all of my relationships with everybody else in my life. I've learned so much. So I look forward to getting into that with you. I hope you've enjoyed this little glimpse into my life and my becoming. I know it was probably a mess and I just kind of rambled for a while. I don't know if I did. I don't know. You be the judge. I'm going to listen to this here in a bit and edit it and all that. So we'll see what I put together. But thank you. I mean, from the bottom of my loving heart, I just want to say thank you for sitting here with me and just listening a little bit to my story and starting to understand who I am. Because if you met me before this period, this last year, and that's who you know, sit tight, man, because you're going to find out why I was that way, and you're going to be surprised at who I am today, if you're not already surprised. So thanks again. Have a good night. We'll talk to you soon.